You're walking down a dungeon corridor when a giant floating eye approaches. Suddenly, your magic user can't cast spells. Your fighter's been charmed. Your toughest henchman was just turned to stone. You've encountered a beholder, and now it's time to run. Well, today the eyes have it. I'm Jonathan Pruitt. This is Jim Davis. It's WebDM, and today we're talking about everyone's favorite spherical alien death machine, the Beholder. Let's get to it. The Beholder first appeared on the cover of the Greyhawk supplement, which was the first supplement for original Dungeons & Dragons published in 1975. Born of the imagination of one of Gary Gygax's gaming group players, the Beholder is a classic D&D monster. The Beholder has a rare distinction of not being directly inspired by real-world mythology or science fiction fantasy literature. For years, it was primarily presented as a solitary monster encountered mainly in dungeons. But with the Spelljammer campaign setting and later the I, Tyrant adventure, the Beholder developed its own ecology, culture, and society.
Their powers revolve around two separate spheres. Things that can kill you, like petrification and disintegration, and things that can make you absolutely miserable, like Charm Person, Slow, and an anti-magic cone emanating from its main eye. The Beholder has had a lasting impact on fantasy and pop culture, from Big Trouble in Little China to its own video game series, D&D, Eye of the Beholder, for PC, Sega CD, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy Advanced. No matter how experienced your players are, you can always spice up their adventure with a Beholder.
So Jim, Beholders, what role-playing opportunities, not just combat, role-playing, does the DM have with a Beholder in the campaign?
For DMs, the Beholders present themselves with a really neat opportunity to just indulge in the most hateful, racial purity kind of villains that you can think of. For our Doctor Who fans, this might mean drawing on inspiration from the Daleks. You know, the Beholders are maniacal, egotistical, hate everybody. They're going to gloat. They're going to monologue. So as a DM, you want to have a good monologue loaded up for your players. But I also think that the Beholders are going to underestimate the PCs. That the Beholders are going to think, these are just a bunch of humans and elves and dwarves who are, they're just a nuisance.
Right.
So if you're kind of one of those DMs who likes to role play the monster's personality as you're doing combat, then you might have them overlook things that the PCs do, or assume that the players are kind of incompetent if this is the first time they're meeting them.
Or possibly the players might catch the Beholder off guard.
Right.
Because of said overconfidence.
Absolutely, yeah. What we've got with the Beholder is an opportunity to play a monster that's just truly self-centered and egotistical. And as a DM, that's very fun.
But with all that power, because Beholders have a lot of power,
right?
What exactly is holding them back?
They're typically encountered alone. They don't usually have minions. They're very clannish, very insular. So it's easy to catch Beholders on their own without having to worry about additional creatures coming along and bothering you while you're fighting them, or trying to, if you can, negotiate with them.
Let's roll initiative. How do you as the DM try to kill your PCs?
One of the things that Beholders have always had advantage on is the action economy of the game. Usually in a typical scenario, you'll have a monster, maybe with some minions that come along, but the players usually have more actions than the DM does when it comes to just pure how many times can my monster act versus how many times can the players act.
Right.
Beholders kind of break that. And they have through all editions of the game, being able to shoot multiple eye rays. Of course, with 5th edition, they're able to shoot them on their own turn and at the end of other players' turns.
Yeah.
So you're getting at in any one sort of round of combat, up to 6 times the Beholders are attacking. If it's in its lair, it's going to get an eye action at least one more time. So 6 to 7 times the Beholder gets to attack for each player. And that allows it to isolate certain players that might be problematic. It might fling a wizard into its area of effect for the cone of, or the anti-magic ray. It might lock down a fighter who it knows can grapple it, or otherwise can keep it from flying away. So the ability to juggle multiple characters at once, to handle an entire party with just one monster, is really what makes the Beholder a scary thing from the DM's perspective. And also incredibly fun. You just get to do a lot more stuff.
You're never wanting for options.
And you're getting to use abilities that are usually like one spell might charm. You know, like you might have a wizard that turns someone to stone once, But you could potentially do that every round with a beholder. Like they really let you cut loose with the special abilities that don't appear that often. So I mean, from a DM's perspective, the beholders are fun because they give you a lot to do. But what about players? How would you advise players handle their first beholder, or even their second or third or fifth?
Like you just explained, all of the different ways that a beholder can rain death on you. So you have a couple of options. You want to try to get a beholder out of its lair. So good luck with that.
Right.
That way you can at least limit that one lair action that you get in 5th edition. If you have enough range characters, try to stay outside of that 150-foot anti-magic cone range, because beholders are really slow. They only move 20 feet around.
Right.
So if you can do that and basically kite them, stay away, there's nothing keeping it from continuing to attack you other than its own smug superiority.
Right.
If you have anyone that can cast like Pass Without a Trace or Invisibility, hopefully you can sneak up on a beholder, which normally is not a viable option. But if you can get Invisibility, that's advantage on that sneak roll. If you can get Pass Without a Trace, that's another +10 on top of it. So if you can get in close, maybe that's an option. If you have some way to grapple or restrain it so it can't get away, because once you start beating on a beholder, we've had an encounter or two with beholders, and once you start beating on them, there's nothing stopping it from just flying straight up and getting out of there, other than it being slow. So if you can restrain it and bring that movement to 0, that's good. The big thing about a player fighting a beholder, you're going to be making a lot of saves. You're going to be making saves every round. You're going to be making saves of every kind.
Right.
There's nothing you want less than that fighter being either charmed and taken out of the fight, or turned to stone and taken out of the fight. Being slowed is one thing, but so having a paladin, I can't remember which. I haven't played a paladin yet, but
Oath of Ancients has the
saving throw bonus.
Saving throw. I think all paladins get the saving throw, and then Oath of Ancients can help with some of the damage that.
Having a paladin in your party, so you get that bonus to saving throws, is a very important thing. But you just got to pile it on. You got to pile it on as quickly and as hard as you can, because they got a lot of hit points.
Yeah. So it's all about crossing that 120-foot death range that they have from when they can first detect you to when you can get in melee with them. So either outside that range or way up and close.
Right up on them.
You brought up an interesting point about grappling.
Yes.
And because the beholder have a hover speed, it's difficult to knock them out of the air if they're already flying.
Exactly.
So you got to get up on them quick, and hopefully without them noticing.
Exactly.
This also raises something interesting for DMs in that it really requires you to know the characters very well.
Yes.
Because you're getting a random assortment of rays every round. You don't know what exactly you're going to get. There's a bit of, okay, do I have a bunch of things that will target charisma saves this time, or constitution saves? It might go badly for a certain group of players because maybe I rolled a lot of things that require constitution saves. I'm not going to target the barbarian or the fighter with those things.
No.
I'm going after the spellcasters and the squishier types with those.
Or the rogue.
Or the rogue, yeah. And so it's a more dynamic fight. It's a lot harder, I think, maybe to plan round to round what's going to happen because of that random element.
Yes.
And so it makes it a lot more exciting, I think.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. So one thing about the earlier editions was morale. And let's say you're fighting a horde of orcs or something, and you kill a few of them, you start checking for morale with the orcs. They run away. So you don't have to kill all 18 of them. You just have to kill enough to force them to run away. But with the zombies, that wasn't the case. You have to fight all 18 of those zombies.
Right.
And so I think, without morale rules in 5th edition, DMs can add that back in just through role-playing how the monsters react to the players. They should take every opportunity to close with the players, to attack them. They're not subtle. Maybe if they're controlled by a necromancer, they try to outflank or maneuver around, but for the most part, they're coming straight at them.
Thanks again for watching WebDM. We're going to have new ones every Wednesday. Tell your friends. Come back next week.